readers. We are meeting today to talk about the last section of our reading dissection log. We have already dissected, or we've broken apart and looked really closely at character and setting already. With your assigned learning partner, I'd like you to discuss with them what you already know about character and setting. What details do you focus on? During this time, I would give students about 30 seconds or so to share their thoughts with each other, and then I would count backwards from 5 with my fingers and expect their attention back on me. I would call on a few students to share their thoughts. Hopefully they'll say something along the lines of, for character, that it's people, a person, or an animal, and they might talk about character traits, like the ones we have on our anchor chart. For setting, I would hope that they would say that it could be a place or a time, when or where, etc. I would like for you to think about an event in your life and why it was so special to you. For example, an event that was special in my life was the day that I graduated from college, because my parents came and the people I cared about were there, and it was a celebration of accomplishing something really big in my life. So that was an event that happened to me. So I'd like you to think for just a moment. Think in your head of an event that was special to you. Again, I give them a few seconds. And then I would call on a few students to share their events. Maybe it was a birthday or a trip to Disney World or something like that. So, class, what is an event? Well, if we were to give it a definition, how would you define event? Why don't you whisper to your partner this time and see if you can come up with a definition together. Again, I'd give them a minute or so before I call their attention back, and then I'd ask for them to share their thoughts. Using the students' ideas, we would come up with a class definition, something along the lines of, an event is something important that happens, or that happened. And I would have a anchor chart to help guide their thoughts with that as well. So here we have event. I'll get that in a minute. I'm sure I'd have a student who would help me pick it up for me. There we go. So something students can ask themselves is what happened and why was it important. So when we dissect our chapters, we are now going to also be gathering details on the event or events that are happening in the story, and we're going to be using that stop and jot technique. So we will be needing our sticky notes and a pencil, or marker in this case, to stop when our brain is talking to us while we're reading and jot down our thoughts. So I want to show you what this looks like. I'm going to be showing you, I'll be doing a think aloud so that you can be hearing what my brain is telling me while I'm reading. So remember, while we're stopping and jotting and picking apart the story, we are dissecting our story. So we've been reading Wonder. This chapter is called The Bleeding Scream. Walking through the halls that morning on my way to the lockers was, I have to say, absolutely awesome. Everything was different now. I was different. Where I usually walked with my head down trying to avoid being seen, today I walked with my head up, looking around. I wanted to be seen. Right there, my brain is telling me something is special about today. Because we've already talked about August when we did our character traits. We talked about how he was really shy. He didn't want to be seen. He didn't like being stared at. So I'm going to use my sticky note, and I'm going to write that. I'm going to put in a character trait. Now remember, we're writing the letter C on our sticky notes for our character traits. That our character is feeling bold. Because he's wearing a mask, remember. So he's bold when wearing the mask. I also want to write the setting. We can tell it's at the school, so I'm going to put an S for setting and write school. And my brain is also telling me that this is something special because it's different. Because he's feeling bold, remember, it's not normal. So that, I think, is going to be part of my event. So I'm going to put an E this time for event. I'm going to write different. That he's walking tall, which is very different for our character. All right, so let's read some more. One kid wearing the same exact costume as mine, long white skull face, oozing fake red blood, high-fived me as we passed each other on the stairs. I have no idea who he was, and he had no idea who I was, and I wondered for a second if he would ever have done that if he had known it was me under the mask. I was starting to think that today was going to go down as one of the most awesome days in the history of my life, but then I got to home. Oh, so that's part of my setting. Let me use my next sticky note and write S for setting and say that they're in the homeroom. The first costume I saw as I walked inside the door was Darth Sidious. Remember, that was the character that Julian asked if August was going to dress up as, the one with the creepy face. It had one of those rubber masks that are so realistic, with a big black hood over the head and a long black robe. I knew right away it was Julian, of course. He must have changed his costume at the last minute because he thought I was coming as Jango Fett. He was talking to two mummies who must have been Miles and Henry, and they were all kind of looking at the door like they were waiting for someone to come through it. I knew it wasn't a bleeding scream that they were looking for. It was a Boba Fett. I was going to go and sit in my usual desk, but for some reason, I don't know why, I found myself walking over to a desk near them, and I could hear them talking. One of the mummies said, "It really does look like him." "Like this part especially," answered Julian's voice. He put his fingers on the cheeks and the eyes of the Darth Sidious mask. My brain's telling me to stop. So I'm going to use my sticky note, the same one that I wrote about the setting. And this is another detail from my event, that no one really knows that it's August. No one knows it's him. No one knows it's him. But he can hear people talking about him. And that's what's different this time, is he can actually hear what's being said about him. I'm also going to put on here a character trait, put my C on here, for Julian. I think he's rude. Just downright rude. Alright, let's see what happens next. "Actually," said the mummy, "what he really looks like is one of those shrunken heads. Have you ever seen those? He looks exactly like that. I think he looks like an orc." "Oh yeah. If I looked like that," said the Julian voice, kind of laughing, "I swear to God, I put a hood over my face every day." "I've thought about this a lot," said the second mummy, sounding serious, "and I really think if I looked like him, seriously, I think I'd kill myself." "You would not," answered Darth Sidious. "Yeah, for real," insisted the same mummy. "I can't imagine looking in the mirror every day and seeing myself like that. It would be too awful. And getting stared at all of the time. Then why do you hang out with him so much?" asked Darth Sidious. "I don't know," answered the mummy. "Tushman asked me to hang out with him in the beginning of the year, and he must have told all the teachers to put us next to each other in all of the classes or something." The mummy shrugged. I knew the shrug, of course. I knew the voice. I knew I wanted to run out of the class right then and there, but I stood where I was and listened to Jack Will finish what he was saying. So, he's realizing that it wasn't who he thought it was under the mummy wrappings. It was his friend. Somebody thought he was his friend. That Jack Will character. So this is an important detail for my event. Let me write my E. That it's his friend, Jack Will, talking pretty badly about him. I'm also going to put a C on there for a character trait for Jack Will. Maybe he's a liar. He sounds kind of like a liar. He's saying he was his friend, now he doesn't sound so much like a friend. I'm also going to write that it's pretty mean. So let's find out what Jack will continue to say. "I mean, the thing is, he always follows me around. What am I supposed to do? Just ditch him," said Julian. "I don't know," Jack answered, "because I walked out of the class without anyone knowing I had been there. My face felt like it was on fire while I walked back down the stairs. I was sweating under my costume, and I started crying. I couldn't keep it from happening. The tears were so thick in my eyes, I could barely see, but I couldn't wipe them through the mask as I walked. I was looking for a little tiny spot to disappear into. I wanted a hole I could fall inside of, a little black hole that would eat me up." Again, my brain is telling me to stop right there. And I feel like this is not only a character trait, but probably an event detail, so I see and an E, that my character is very hurt. And that's the end of my chapter. So, I now have all of these sticky notes in here for my details. Now I am ready to write my summary on my log. Now we're going to skip writing the summary for character and setting because we've already worked on that. I want to focus today just on events. So could you help me out? What could I say, using what we read and what I jotted down in my sticky notes, what could I say for my summary for my event? I would take some student thoughts and we'd work together to write a summary together. Probably something along the lines of that our character is wearing a mask and feels very bold and confident in it, and that he can hear what other people are saying about him. I would write that probably that his friend Jack Will is talking about him behind his back, and our character is hurt. All right. In a moment, you will be set to go and do your own reading, and you will need to continue to stop and jot about your characters, about the setting, and now about the events that are happening in your chapters. I know many of you have been doing an excellent job stopping and jotting. In fact, why don't we take a moment? Why don't you share with your learning partner some of the sticky notes that you have been using on your own stories? So let's take a minute. Why don't you share some of those stop and jot notes that you have? Again, I give students a few minutes. If I had some extra time, I might ask a few students to share with the whole class. When I send you to read, I will be meeting with some of you, and I'll be looking at your stop and jot notes. I might be looking at your logs. You will be using your sticky notes, you'll be using your logs, you'll be filling out all of the boxes now on your logs. You now know how to do that. You need to remember that when you're filling out these logs that you are dissecting your story. This will help you later to prepare for your report that you're going to be doing, where you get to represent one of your characters and share with someone about what happened in your story. At this time, I would send my students off to go and read. I would confer with them about what they're working on and give them some extra support if they still were struggling with the concepts. At the very end of our reading time, I might call on a couple of students to share their summary of their event. And that would be the end of my lesson.